What's up, guys? Rick here, and I'm going to show you how to get rich slowly on Underdog Fantasy by taking small edges over and over and over again so that the odds are actually in our favor as opposed to their favor. I'm going to tell you what Underdog Fantasy is. I'm going to give you some strategy tips. I'm going to show you the math behind these decisions and what you need to become profitable. I'm going to give you some tools that you can use along the way and just generally show you the blueprint of how to get this done. So let's jump right into it. So what is Underdog Fantasy? It is a fantasy pick'em site that allows you to pick player props and create entries anywhere from 2 to 8 different legs, and depending on how many legs that you choose, how many props you choose, the larger the payouts. And there are two different types of entries. There's either standard or flex. So basically, if you choose three entries, a 3-leg entry, you could say, okay, for getting all 3 of these correct, that's going to pay out 14.02x. Or if I flex it, I only have to get 2 of them right to turn a profit. I will make less if I get 3 correct, but it's a little bit of insurance along the way. And this is really the key behind the math here. There are so many different options and across all sports, Major League Baseball, WNBA, PGA, tennis, esports, NFL, as you can imagine, right? Just literally everything is on here, and that creates thousands and thousands of player prop opportunities. And really, the payouts are going to determine how you're going to be successful here, because the type of entry that you make straight out of the gate, whether you are great at picking props or not and getting them right, the type of entry that you choose matters in a huge way. So a stock, just straight up, no other variables, a straight 2-leg entry returns 3x. A straight 3-leg entry in general will do about 5 to 6%, usually 6%. Let's see if we can find one here. Well, that's even better, 6.36, but you get the idea, right? So these payouts, they matter. And depending on what these payouts are, determines how good you have to be at selecting props correctly. What I've done is I've run the break even point for every single type of prop entry that you can make on Underdog Fantasy to see what your win rate has to be. So a regular 2-leg entry, if you get both legs right, you get a 3x return. If you get one of them wrong, you lose. That is requiring you to get those props correct 57.7% of the time. When you do that, you have a 33% chance of winning this prop, in which that'll return you $66 of EV. And then, of course, the other 66% of the time you are going to lose, which returns you negative $66 of EV, and that breaks you even. So to be a winner at 2-leg entries, you need to be getting prop legs correct 57.7% of the time. It's a lot. It is a lot, but there are a lot better options. For example, these are drastically all over the place. So for example, a 3-leg flex. So if I change this and said, go from standard to a flex, this is one of the worst entries that you can put together, because you need to be winning these legs, getting these right 63% of the time. So what I did is I ranked all the possible options. So the only 3 types of entries that you are going to see me put out and play on a regular basis are 3-leg standard entries, 5-leg standard entries, and 4-leg standard entries. All the rest are very difficult to beat. Those 3 need 53%, 53%, and 54, almost 55% of getting those props accurate. If you're doing 3-leg flexes, you need to be getting each leg correct 63% of the time, 10 percentage points more frequently than a 3-leg standard entry. So if you remove everything but three standards, five standards, three, four, and five standard entries. You are already pushing your EV up. You are pushing your win rate up by just avoiding those at all costs. So how do we find entries and figure out the math on which ones are good or not? So here is an example for tonight. Diana Taurasi, 15 and a half points, higher or lower. If we go and compare the true odds, the actual odds from sportsbooks, we're going to find some interesting things. So here's that same prop on DraftKings, 15 and a half, over, higher than Diana Taurasi is minus 125, and under is minus 105. So if you plug that into a calculator, which I'll link this spreadsheet in the description, you're going to see that at those odds, minus 125 on over and minus 105 on the lower side, that is implying a 55.5% win rate for the favorite. However, that includes the VIG. It includes the hold from the sports book, which you can see the two outcomes equal 106%. That's 6.7%. That's the hold. That's the VIG. So we need to de-juice these lines, de-VIG these lines. So if you see the calculation below, that's what's happening here. I'm taking the juice out of this, and you can see this is only a 52% implied win for Diana Taurasi's higher than points number. So that's not good enough. So we must keep searching. Landon Knack, an MLB prop for tonight, hits 4.5 hits allowed. If you go over to Caesars, you can see that his hits allowed for tonight, 4.5, is minus 154 to the higher, the over, at plus 112. So let's plug that in. Minus 154 plus 112. There we go. We remove the VIG, and it's a 56.24% implied win probability. That is good in all three of our entry style. You look at sportsbooks and compare those lines to what you find on Underdog. And you could use DraftKings, or Pinnacle is usually considered pretty sharp, or BetMGM, or whatever you want. But you're looking for those consensus sportsbook lines because they've already done all the hard work for us, right? I don't have to know anything about the player or even the sport, because sportsbooks have thought of weather and injuries and trends and a million other things. So the short answer is just compare odds to sportsbooks. There are thousands of them, and that would be very time consuming. So there are a couple of tools that exist to allow you to do this. The first one I'll show you is one that I own and operate. It's called RunGoodProps.com. I'll show you another one that I have no affiliation with as well. But what this allows you to do is this dashboard brings in all of the props in real time for Underdog and a variety of other prop sites, and then compares them to sports books here. So you can see right out of the gate here, Mackenzie Hughes, 17 and a half outs, is 56% to win on the over side, because Pinnacle has that at minus 160. Pinnacle is usually considered quite sharp. And then you've got James Paxton under 15 and a half outs, and Jorge Soler lower than 1.5 total bases. All of those are better than, if not very close to, 55% probabilities to win. These lines have already been de-juiced, so you can just look at the probabilities and see those. So when you put this entry in, the three-legger, and you can see the payouts do not change no matter what side of these props that we are on. That is a good thing. That's kind of the secret here, because we are taking the side that is more likely to happen, because the sports books are telling us they are more likely to happen. So we've got an entry here that we are on the correct side of all three. And actually, if you add up those probabilities, you'll see that we are beating the book right now. For every $100 we wager, we would expect to return 1.44%, $101 and $44. That's small, right? It's a 1% edge. However, when you are normally putting these entries in, you are at a pretty big disadvantage if you're doing it any other way. If you were on the opposite side of all of these, you would not have a very good time, and you would have a very negative expected value for every $100 or every $10 that you put in. So green is good, and that's why this is getting rich slowly. It's a volume game. You're taking your 1, your 2, your 3% or whatever that might be as frequently as possible, and you add them up over time, and you kind of do it just like, a little investment portfolio. If you don't want to go to Run Good Props because I'm affiliated with it, I get it. I would also say go check out Odds Jam. From what I understand, they're quite popular, and they do a lot of different things, and they've got some dashboards. I can't show you it. I'm not signed up, but it looks pretty cool. I mean, I wouldn't have any issues with this, I suppose, if it does what it says it does. And then there's also, I mean, I was just Googling props.cash. Looks like I have no affiliation with any of these, so I have no idea if they're good or not. But the idea of being able to look through the props, see both sides of it, have access to everything, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, all you're really looking for is an aggregation dashboard that allows you to look through all of the props, filter by sport, by website, see the probabilities. There are probably dozens of them, so find the one that works best for you. The other part of getting rich slowly is that Underdog will offer these promos every single day. Right. And sometimes you'll see them where they're very generous, where it'll be like, oh, as soon as so-and-so pitcher throws the first pitch, or as once the golfer makes one stroke, or, something like that, where it's basically a guaranteed winner. That's what they're trying to do. Or it'll be these discounted timed promos. So right now there's a Ranger Suarez Phillies strikeouts prop up here, and they have it at 3.5 strikeouts, and you take the higher side. Well, that's a very good offer. That's a very good promo, because his true line for tonight is -140. So a heavy favorite over 4.5. So you're even a bigger favorite on over 3.5, which is what Ranger Suarez is being offered right now. So what you could do is you could add this to your other existing good legs to ramp up your payouts. Now, of course, Underdog is not stupid, so these are generally limited to $10. But that doesn't mean you should be passing them up, right? You should be taking advantage of them. $10 a day over the course of the year is $3,600 that you are going to wager, where you're going to take a bigger edge. Again, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not. Like, those are usually too good to be true. And that's not what this is. This is a get rich slow scheme. It's volume. It's taking the edges when you have them and avoiding them when you don't. So don't scoff at your $10 a day when it's a couple $1,000s a year and you're getting a significant edge. I think a lot of people often just think, it's only $10. I'm not interested, but it does add up very quickly, especially if you're adding it into other legs that you have a mathematical advantage on. Now, what you've probably noticed recently is that Underdog has really leaned into these Scorchers, these little peppers that are next to a lot of the props, and they offer either much higher than 1x return, sometimes 3x, 4, depending on what it is, if it's a guy to hit a home run or something like that. And it really can ramp up your payouts. I think, in fact, now when you go Scorchers with 8 legs, you can get up to something like 300x payouts, which is insane. As a casual person, as just a fan of sports, this is great. As someone who unfortunately has done the math on this, cannot endorse these Scorchers. They are usually not very good deals. So I'll try to find an example for you here and show you why. Okay, so on the right side of the screen, we took a Scorcher with JD Martinez to get higher than it's 1.5 hits is what it says. I'm zoomed in a little bit. 1.5 hits. And then also we've combined that with Keibert Ruiz to get lower than 0.5 hits. So JD Martinez needs 2 or more hits and Ruiz needs to go hitless. And on Underdog, that will $100 wager will return $562. Well, if you go and put that in a sports book, which is exactly the same 2 legs here. So JD Martinez over 1.5 hits, Keibert Ruiz under a half a hit. JD Martinez is plus 190 to do that. Ruiz is plus 155. That payout would be 100 to return 739 compared to 100 to return 562 on Underdog. So as much as I love the innovation and the fun of putting $5 or $10 on a bunch of Scorchers, that is not part of the get rich slowly game plan. And it's not part of the get rich slowly strategy because these are usually being juiced at a pretty insane clip. Here are the cliff notes. The 5 things that you're going to do to get rich slowly from Underdog Fantasy. Number 1, you're only going to enter 3, 4, and 5 leg standard slips. Nothing else. You are going to use a dashboard to find those plays, or you're going to scour these sports books yourself to find the applicable plays. Number 3, you're going to take advantage of all of the promos. That's everything, even if they are for low limits, and it includes deposit bonuses, which as of right now, they are running one up to $250, which you can use the code RICK for, or there's a link in the description. Number 4, you are going to avoid Scorchers at basically all costs. And number 5, you are going to stay disciplined because this is get rich slowly. It is not get rich quick. It is taking small advantages over time for a long time. I hope that makes sense. I'm wishing you the best of luck, and I'll talk to you soon.